what his position is based upon his political motive.
Tell everybody how much you love ATN News Media Group.
ATN News Media Group. I love them because they got the message to sports Negro up in California for burning them jockeys from under the bridge and sending them to Flint because nobody recognizes the dark man no more. They rather to burn them out and talk about NRA, Negro racket ass, and you ain't getting no.
Yes, I had a cocktail.
Hell is a treasure. Hell is a treasure. So, we live, Winters. We live. We motherfucking live.
Good morning.
Good morning, my people. How everybody doing this morning? Oh, Marcus Fielder, good morning, man.
We had to start off with that.
Yeah, I thought that was the quote of the morning right there, maybe for the day. Good morning there, Richard Clark, my good brother from the Bronx. You don't know nothing about the boogie down, Winters.
What?
Bronx, we never run, we never fold. You don't know nothing about that.
That's where I honor people from.
The Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
They from the Bronx. What's up, Salty Chef Tia Harris? Good morning, Drewlina at the rest side. Morning, Francine, Meat Freak, Constance Ramirez.
Hey, Maurice. What's up, fam?
How everybody doing this morning? Jessica Stewart, I see you. Francine Johnson, Elizabeth Finney, Lenore Seal. Good morning, everybody. Hanifa, Drewlina, Andre Holland. I got to be a man of my word. So there's a couple things we got to do, y'all. Taz Montana, good morning. Just Oil, good morning. Sharon Duger,
Hey,
Carolyn
Just
Hendricks,
Oil.
Cassandra Scott, Catherine Mitchell, good morning. Reva Unknown, good morning. My good brother Otis Johnson from Alabama is in the building. Sarah P.
Patrick Jean, good morning.
Linda Flowers. Tamia Brown, Renetta the Goddess, Abandoned Fate, Mimi Connor, Anthony Echoes. But y'all know what we got to do at this time, family. You know how this game goes now. We moving on up. We trying to move up to the what do they say, the west side or the east side? We're going to the east side. So the things we have to do now, family, we are becoming more professional, but we have to pay the bills. So give us a second while we get these bills together. And we muted. You know, we're going to pay these motherfucking bills. Goddamn, we got to pay these goddamn bills. You got to get Just Oil shit together. And we muted. You know, we're going to pay these motherfucking bills. Goddamn, we got to pay these goddamn bills. You got to get Just Oil shit.
Let me talk to the people while he's sitting up here just having him a good time, just cussing away. Didn't even have a thing going. Shouts out to ATN News Media Group and the greatest producer in the world.
Not today.
Spacely Sprocket. You know, his anxiety kicked in and stuff.
It was kicked in, man. I'm tired. Y'all had me up all night yesterday. Y'all know how this stuff go, man. I be tired, man. I be tired.
We had a long day yesterday. You got to bear with him. As he gets it together, he was trying to put up my homie, my family, Zayna Chantel, LLC. You can go to ZaynaChantel.com. And that's who has all of this wonderful hydrating body oil, I'm telling you, she has the acne scar exfoliate, the beard cleanser, the face cleanser, the soap. But this is my favorite right here. Y'all gonna see this every day. This perfume oil called Obsessed right here. And it comes in pieces of shimmer. This would be amazing for your girlfriend, for your mother, for your friends, and especially since Mother's Day is coming up. So
Yeah,
this would be nice. And if you put in the code A10, you get 20% off, and she ships it out immediately. Plus, she's located right here in Flint. So,
oh, hold on, they said the audio bad. Let me get this together. Hold on, fam. There's a lot of stuff going bad for it. Now, I ain't getting no rest. I ain't
what are
gonna
you
lie.
doing?
They said the audio. They said the sound something bad. I don't know. I don't know how much I know. Can you hear yourself talking? I don't need to be saying nothing.
No, you don't.
They said I got the ball audio going on today. I don't know what's going on.
What you done did?
Not nothing. Let me go ahead and check this out. Let me check this out. I don't know what I did. No, I say we connect. Let me hit the mic. I just tapped the mic. It say we good on this end. Oh, they said no issues with the sound. Like it say we good.
Yeah, I don't hear any issues.
Somebody's playing games this morning. Playing them. I mean, I know I was messing up because I got the sister stuff together now. Let me get this did right now. Let me get this.
Zaina Chantel LLC is a natural plant-based cosmetic brand in Flint, Michigan. We specialize in gentle, non-toxic skin and hair care for men and women. Each product is handmade, fresh to order, and available online at zainachantel.com. Remember, be natural, stay beautiful. Zaina Chantel LLC is a natural plant-based cosmetic brand in Flint, Michigan. We specialize in gentle, non-toxic skin and hair care for men and women. Each product is handmade, fresh to order, and available online at zainachantel.com. Remember, be natural, stay beautiful.
Am I back? Am I back? Just get this out the way, George. Honey, he's about 10 minutes away. He just texted me he's on his way. And listen, now that's to get your body together. But you can start at the top, go down. You can start at the body and go up. But our next person that's been with us since day one, and we got to shout her out because she's family. Just Oil Hair and Body Solutions out of Dayton, Ohio. And listen, as I said yesterday, and let me get my little samples up here. She has some great samples. The black soap shampoo, my favorite, my personal favorite, the hydrating hair lotion. You just can't find anything better than that. Makes your hair just good. Now, I haven't met a person. I don't know about y'all, and I'm gonna say it again. I haven't met a person that didn't have some issues with their hair, whether it was dry hair, frizzy hair, breakage, split ends, or dry, itchy scalp. We done all seen somebody like that. Now, research shows that these issues are a result of improper hydration and moisture retention. Just Oil Hair and Body Solutions, they offer solutions that naturally hydrate and moisturize. Now, all of their products are designed to be time saving with immediate and long lasting results. And you can see and feel the difference almost immediately. Now, each month they're going to offer 15% off a solution. April, listen to me. April is the hydrating hair lotion. Okay, 15% off of that. And then in May, they will be offering 15% off the Twist and Shout Curl Cream. Now, as an A10 viewer, which all of you are because you're watching me right now, they're going to be offering free shipping with their first order with the code A10 News Media Group. Free shipping with Just Oil for A10 News Media Group. So sign up for their email list to receive information, tips, and special offers at justoilhair.com. And then make sure you follow them on social media at Just Oil Hair. So back to you, Mickey.
You gonna really get you back to me?
Why? What's wrong? Mickey is just on something this morning.
No, I was over here seeing.
Okay?
I'm gonna make it through the day.
Okay.
Lack of sleep.
You did a lot yesterday.
I stayed above my bed hours. I know I'll be in the bed by 9. I don't know why I pushed it to 12 o'clock.
He did. And I had to get off the phone with him because he was tap. He was hyper. He was hyper yesterday. That ENA board meeting had Mickey just going. Why have you going like that, Mickey? Somebody said the whole meeting was a dumpster fire.
Yeah, it was. Good morning, everybody. Taliba, Tia, Brianna, Busted, Ben, Shocks. Good morning. K6.
Shouts out to my stylist, Carletta Martin.
Kendrick Jump. Oh, that's who been styling you up?
Yeah, she keeps me together, baby.
It ain't in the budget. I can tell you that now.
Who said you was paying?
Oh, thank goodness. Because I said if it was coming out of A10 budget, we're finna be some furniture
That's
movement.
all right. I got a budget.
Oh,
and I got stuff.
And as you can see, the rest of 810 is struggling. Go ahead. Go ahead. And this is where the games come in.
Mickey, here you go. Here you go. Here you go. Get back on your stuff, Mickey. Get back on your stuff.
Before them good morning shit. Oh, shit, the sound keep breaking up.
Mickey, are they messing with you? Check the sound first.
Oh, man. I'm sorry.
Check the sound first before you get to tripping. It sounds clear to me. Are they playing games with us?
Yep.
Like making us seem like the sound is good here, but the people can't hear us when we talking. Is that what's going on, Mickey?
Y'all tell me, can y'all hear us what we saying? I mean, my phone is working. I'm over here about to disconnect some stuff.
Don't disconnect nothing, Mickey, please. They said Chris Caleb said they can hear.
Oh, okay, y'all can hear. It ain't us, family.
I'm so tired. I don't know what to do. Michelle said thank you again, Mickey, for bringing up her issue yesterday at the ENA board meeting. I seen where she just typed it.
No, thank you. I had to do that though because I found it strange that the young lady, Billy and Billy Dansler and Carol, they stuff didn't they just get put in? And that lady's was from 2022.
Right. I seen like we got new complaint forms here from the city.
Yeah. Yep, I got the new complaint form.
So you might have to fill out a new form.
Sure it is.
But see, like I said last night,
can I fill out one on Liddell for her doxing me?
You probably could. I'm sure you could.
Okay.
But see, the thing about it, because I told him last night, if y'all didn't watch the evening edition of the Bump, I said last night, and I talked to a lot of board members, past and present, so they wouldn't be able to pinpoint it down right. And so when they get the stuff in on council people, oh, look, we got somebody. Come on in. Cut the camera off real quick. Have a seat right on over here. Awesome. And what happens is when they get complaints in on council and administration, it has to go to Mr. King first. It goes to Mr. King, and then it comes back. But unfortunately, I don't think they ever come back. I don't know about y'all, but I just don't think it comes back.
Right.
So, good morning.
Hey there.
Jordan Sheridan.
Good to finally meet you.
Winters Hall.
Jordan.
Nice to meet you.
Mickey.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
What's up with you, Jordan?
How you doing? Mickey. So, Jordan, introduce yourself for our A10 viewers.
Hello, Flint. Good morning. My name is Jordan Chariton. I am a journalist, not from Michigan, but feel like I'm here more than my own home state. And I've been reporting on the Flint water crisis and keyword cover-up for the last 8 years. And I'm in town, obviously, to cover this really sacred, solemn anniversary. So we covered the festivities yesterday. And we also have a documentary coming out on Sunday called Flint Fatigue. I think you will we tried to do it all. We tried to touch on the cover up. We tried to touch on the crisis, the tragedy, the fraud, and the, really for-profit, greedy reasons you've been suffering for so long. So that will be online Sunday on our website, flintfatigue.com. And I have a book coming out this summer on the cover up. And yeah, my main goal is to inform Flint residents the full story of how you were poisoned and why you were poisoned, because sadly, I think, excluding current company, the majority of the media in Flint and wider Michigan are not exactly interested in sharing the truth.
Right. Well, let's get right into it. You talking about you ready to share the truth?
Let's do it.
So this week has been all about water. And you've been following Flint since day one of the water crisis?
2016, yeah.
2016,
Yeah.
okay. So the news broke that the water was no good. Well, they told us about it in 2014, but obviously it was not doing so well before then. So I got a few questions for you. You want to answer some questions for me, Jordan?
Hit me.
Okay, I'm going to hit you with it. So 10 years later, here we are. So who dropped the ball?
Man, how many hours we got?
We can go all day. No.
Well, I think you got to go even before the water crisis, because I don't think something like this could actually happen unless there was a controlled demolition of Flint. And what I mean by that is, Flint used to be the envy of America back in 1950s, 60s, birthplace of the middle class. And for a lot of reasons, you had corporations basically controlling the government and creating laws and situations that allowed General Motors to send their jobs to other countries, close down factories in Flint. You had white flight, racist rezoning laws, redlining. And I think.
You know about redlining?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to know. Some of our council people didn't. I just.
Yeah. And for the history of Flint, I think Demolition Means Progress is a great book. I learned a lot from that about, the school segregation, housing segregation, redlining, all that. But I think all those things led, by the turn of the century, Flint, I hate to say it, was kind of like a dying economic carcass. And the vultures came in to prey. The economic vultures came into prey. And I think when you got to look at who dropped the ball, I think first and foremost, the media dropped the ball, because the media, everyone lives busy lives. You got, if you're lucky, one job, but most people are hustling with two jobs. You got your kids. You're, trying to keep your house. You're trying to, get enough time to go to the bathroom, maybe watch one show in your busy lives. So the people do not have the time to investigate what's going on. The people didn't have the time to investigate, what is this Karagandhi Water Authority? Is it good for us? It was the media's job to do it. And I think the local media in Flint, from what I've seen and experienced over the years, don't do a lot of investigation. I think they're not interested in doing a lot of investigation for various reasons. I think they dropped the ball in informing the residents the true motivations behind this new water system. I think they did a really bad job. There was blinking red lights before the Flint River switch that water plant was the equivalent of getting on one of these Boeing planes with 1.5 wings.
Oh, tell me about it. Tell us a little bit more about that.
The water plant, and this is not an attack on the workers there, because they were screaming,
right? Stop.
Right. Do not switch.
They were.
And there's a lot of details that will be out in my book that people don't know. They didn't, this narrative that, they forgot to add the corrosion control. They didn't even have the equipment to do it. If they wanted to add the corrosion control, the actual equipment to put it in was not in that plant. They were adding some chemicals into the water through a hole on the floor.
What?
They were adding some chemicals through a hole on the floor. Do you know that 2 weeks before the water switch, they switched workers from the city's garbage department to the plant?
Well, I'll be damned.
They were so understaffed and workers were begging the city. And when I say the city, let's be clear. The city was taken over. So they were begging the emergency manager, which was just a puppet for Rick Snyder. They were begging for, we need more staff. So the emergency manager gave them workers from the garbage department. No disrespect to sanitation workers, but they don't know anything about water treatment. So they moved people over from the garbage department basically to give more bodies.
Right.
I mean, there was, and I have confidential documents from the criminal investigation that show this. There was very few systems working in that water plant. They didn't even have real-time data coming in. I'm telling you, it literally is like getting on a plane and then adding the parts to the plane while you're midair. In my documentary, which we're premiering Sunday, I spoke with Kayla Rubel, who's another journalist. She's been basically excommunicated from Michigan media because she wouldn't play by their rules. She was at the Detroit News, and she was also sharing the ozone system. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but that's the disinfection. That wasn't working. The parts were being delivered to the plant the week of the switch.
Well, they just had like tours. Did you happen to go on one of the tours?
I did not go on the tour.
Oh, okay. Because they had all of these millions of upgrades that they wanted to show us about this wonderful water plant 10 years later, even though the water still isn't fixed.
Well, I don't know. For all you Flint residents, you should Google Sheldon Neely, I think in 2012, gave a tour of the plant.
He sure did.
And said that, yeah, it's a myth that drinking from the Flint River is bad for you. Go look that up.
Yeah.
But, you know, I could go on forever, but who dropped the ball? The media dropped the ball, because if they had a desire to investigate this, if they had a desire to break stories, there were workers trying to reach out to the media. There were activists trying to reach out to the media, and they just ignored it. I have broken one of my main frustrations. I mean, I'm not from Michigan, and this is not about me, this story. But one of my main frustrations, I've broken many stories over the years in national outlets. I broke stories that the governor's top advisor, Richard Baird, who, if you follow like The Sopranos, is kind of like the consigliere to the mob boss. He was going around Flint offering sick residents payoffs.
Wow.
The Flint Journal, the Detroit News, the Detroit Free Press wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't cover it. Do you know, in 2020, during the height of COVID, I'm talking like people are talking to each other through their cars. I drove to Michigan. I didn't want to fly and get COVID, so I drove. I had obtained confidential documents from the Flint criminal investigation. I had obtained the phone logs of former Governor Rick Snyder. I had obtained phone logs that showed the governor, his chief of staff, Nick Lyon, the head of the health department. They were all on the phone like a bunch of drunken teenagers for 2 days, 22 times in October 2014. You know what was going on in October 2014?
What?
Legionnaires was going on. The health department, the environmental department were trading panicked emails and phone calls about the Legionnaires. An epidemiologist with the health department put in an email. My hypothesis is the Legionnaires outbreak is because of the Flint River switch. October 14th, 2014, Snyder's lawyer sends an email to his chief of staff calling it urgent. We need to switch back to Detroit. 2 days later, Snyder, Muchmore, Lyon are on the phone 22 times in 2 days. And the criminal investigation, they mapped out all of their phone calls to see, like, do they talk this much often, or was this unusual? They did not talk that much often. I handed it to one of the top editors of the Detroit Free Press.
And it went away.
I also handed him, residents might not know, there was a briefing to Snyder in October of 2014 that mentioned Legionnaires. October 2014, I failed math. I think that's earlier than January 2016 by 16 months. I handed that to the Detroit Free Press. This editor said to me, and I quote, "This is major."
Yeah, you think?
I even offered, because I know they like to take the credit. I said, just throw one of your reporters' names on it next to mine, because they probably didn't want it to be just me.
Right.
I said, you could put my name second. 3 days later, they emailed me, we don't have the resources to do this story. I mean, I have several other examples of local media, national media ignoring or passing on major reporting. I did a story. I got evidence that Snyder, a lot of his top officials, their phones were mysteriously erased right
Oh.
before the launch of the Flint criminal investigation.
Well, see, that leads me into two questions I have for you, and you can mix them together. So when we talk about this criminal investigation that went away, okay, nobody got charged. Nessel came in, started say, "Hey, I want to start everything." I want to know how you feel about that. And then my second question, it sounds like somebody was trying to make some money when you talk about this Karagandhi Water Authority. So follow the money is what I usually hear in politics. So wrap that up for me. The criminal investigation and who was going to pocket the most out of this?
I got to be careful what I say about the attorney general because not to go into full detail, but she might be getting a lawsuit soon. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, 810. Way to go.
Because the attorney general's office, long story short, as a journalist, you could put in freedom of information requests, to get information. So I've been putting in freedom of information requests for quite a while, specifically to get documents about the KWA, because this financial fraud mysteriously disappeared. The original Flint investigators that she fired, they had charged several state officials, including the emergency managers, with false pretenses, basically like bond fraud. And Nessel dropped those charges, and she did not bring them back when she recharged a lot of the same officials. She also went on Michigan radio in 2019, and I don't know if she just had a brain fart or was intentionally lying, but she had said, over 3 years investigation, I've never seen any charges related to the KWA.
Dr. Thomas Padroni, he's one of our 810 podcasters. Tell your guests that the exact same thing happened to me as an educational researcher in trying to break the news about the emergency manager in Detroit schools.
Yeah.
And that was 2014.
Oh.
I think one thing your audience needs to know, and I've learned this the hard way, people think that cover-ups are the government. The media is a big part of all of these cover-ups.
Right.
But to answer your question, number one, I have spoken with approximately 10 to 15 lawyers. Not one told me they have ever seen anything like an attorney general coming in on a case this big. I mean, the Flint water case is international. People know about this around the world.
Yes, they do.
And all right, you want to fire the prosecutor and put in your own people?
I
Fine.
get that, right.
But they have never heard of firing basically the whole team of prosecutors, dropping all the charges, then recharging for most of the same crimes. She fired the prosecutors, but the people she put in place, I mean, just factually, you could look it up, were amateurs. Fadwa Hamoud, I met her. She seems nice. She had never faced a jury before, but she happened to help Dana Nessel fundraise on her campaign.
Oh, okay.
Kim Worthy, who is the Wayne County prosecutor, she is very talented. From my reporting, she was barely involved. She was just kind of involved by name.
Okay.
So the one person that actually had some experience wasn't involved day to day. But I do know that Dana Nessel had a grudge and like kind of a petty hatred of Todd Flood from their days working in the Wayne County prosecutor's office.
Now, Todd Flood, explain for our viewers.
Yeah, so Todd Flood, the original Attorney General Bill Schuette before Nessel, launched the investigation in 2016, and he didn't want the Attorney General's office to be investigating it, so he hired an outside lawyer. So Todd Flood, was involved with some high-profile cases in Michigan. So she appointed Todd Flood. Schuette appointed Todd Flood. Todd Flood brought in Andy Arena as the chief investigator. I mean, this guy don't mess around. He helped bring down the Gambino crime family in New York.
Okay.
After 9/11, he was on counterterrorism. He's been, I think he was involved with the Kwame Kilpatrick bribery issue. And he was the head of the FBI in Detroit for many years.
Oh, wow.
So this is like I don't know. It sounds like someone who has a lot of experience. He had dealt with financial fraud, racketeering, RICO. She fired him too. From my reporting, they didn't really do a thorough debrief with the original Flint team. What I mean by that is they didn't really, the original team she fired had 3 years of a case going, and they barely did like a transition briefing. And based on my reporting, and most residents don't know this, Todd Flood's team, they were building a case against Governor Snyder for involuntary manslaughter.
Wow. Much bigger than what he got charged for. Misdemeanor.
To be clear, they weren't ready to charge him with that, but they were building a case for him against involuntary manslaughter under, similar to Nick Lyon, that he knew about the Legionnaire's disease much, much earlier, and he failed to warn the residents. They were going to charge him, I know this, with misconduct in office. Somehow Dana Nestle's team, Flint residents have said it this way to me, charged him with a parking ticket. So I don't really know how one set of prosecutors see enough evidence for involuntary manslaughter, but Dana Nestle and her team of a source on her team said it to me, amateurs, this is not my opinion, this is what a source on her team told me, amateurs who were overwhelmed. And I will say, Fadwa Hamoud, I'm not attacking her because I think she genuinely wanted justice for Flint. But some people are not as experienced. And this is a big case. You're dealing with investigating the governor's office, the health department, the environmental department, the treasury department.
There's a lot of corruption here.
City officials, county officials. You got to put people in that have been there, done that.
Right.
I think Dana Nessel, when it comes down to it, it could be, some people think it was intentional. I think it was a mix of two things. One, from what I've heard from people who worked on her campaign, from what I've heard people who work in her office, this is a pretty vindictive person.
Okay.
I've never met her, but this is what I've been told by many people. She's not the most pleasant person.
I'm sure she's going to watch.
Yeah. She did not like Todd Flood.
Okay.
She did not like Bill Schuette. Another thing is, and this was mentioned to me by many lawyers, why as a candidate was she out there? Can I curse?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why as a candidate for attorney general was she out there shitting on the Flint water investigation when she had never seen any documents from it? She had no access to private, confidential information, who they were going after, what evidence they had. Lawyers said that to me. That's very unusual for a candidate to be crapping on an investigation, saying it's political show trial. She didn't know what they had behind the hood. She didn't know who they were going after. She certainly didn't know. I do. They were about 6 months to a year ago from filing racketeering charges. That's RICO.
Yeah.
RICO is used against organized crime. Thinks Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I believe I know who it was, but I don't have enough evidence to support it. They were going after some pretty heavy top officials. That just disappeared. I had officials that were interviewed by Nessel's team. They told me Fadwa Hamoud in particular looked like a deer in the headlights when it came to KWA. She knew very little. And I can't really blame her because she was just thrown into this case. Why would you get rid of the whole team that was building this case for 3 years? If you want to get rid of Flood, fine. But why would you then get rid of the chief investigator? Why would you? And the reason she said they were getting rid of them was because it's, why should we be paying this money outside when we could just use salaried employees? But then she brought in
She did.
outside
Yes, she did.
And the other thing I got to tell you, a lot of people don't realize this, and I hope Dana Nessel's watching. There was a basic conflict of interest here in fully going to the mat on the KWA. If they would have filed criminal charges on the KWA, racketeering in particular, that settlement bill goes way up.
Do tell.
Well, it's just not just Flint, any criminal civil case. If you're charged, let's say you charge the governor with involuntary manslaughter.
Mhm.
Well, the civil lawyers have a lot more to go with to drive up that civil bill because there's obviously going to be more evidence and new information coming out
Right.
about corruption, about reckless endangerment of citizens. So you have more damage and more evidence to demand a higher amount. Same thing with financial fraud. If they're filing racketeering charges, and within that racketeering charge, based on my reporting, was securities fraud, meaning the bond deal. I believe, based on my reporting, that there was contract fraud, KWA contractors. We're talking construction companies, that kind of stuff. There's other stuff in terms of suspect land deals, land purchases along the route of the KWA. That civil settlement is going way up.
Okay.
The second thing, the state of Michigan, if the KWA had criminal charges, the state of Michigan, and this was told to me by sources familiar with the criminal investigation, state of the Michigan's own liability financially could be hundreds of millions of dollars because the attorney general's office signed off on that administrative consent order that led to the bond deal. So in English, state of Michigan itself could be facing serious financial liability if criminal charges are filed related to financial fraud, KWA. And because I agree with you, follow the money. You ever hear of something called Wall Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
JP Morgan and Wells Fargo.
Oh.
And Stifel Nicholas was the third firm. They issued the bonds for the KWA.
Oh, how big is this, Jordan?
They were sued civilly. They were sued in 2020, I believe, for, I think the damages were 2.5 billion or something like that. They were sued civilly on behalf of 2,600 children in Flint. They had serious liability too, because as the bondholders, they were supposed to do their due diligence, meaning make sure the plant can safely treat the water.
Right.
That did not happen. So they had financial liability. Well, I could tell you, Wintis, Wall Street donates to a lot of politicians in America, local politicians, state, federal. And this is not just Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party, Dana Nessel, Gretchen Whitmer, Dan Kildee, name your pick, and the Republicans. It goes both ways. They don't want JP Morgan and Wells Fargo to be facing financial liability because then, their checks might go away.
There you go.
So this was, when I say, and I say it for my book, this is not being dramatic. This is not trying to just sell books. I'm telling you, because I've been living and breathing this for 8 years. This is the biggest government cover-up of the 21st century. This makes Watergate look like a picnic. Nobody died from Watergate. Frankly, I think this makes, I know Kwame Kilpatrick is a sensitive subject. Nobody died from that. Rick Snyder got a misdemeanor, but Kwame Kilpatrick got almost 30 years.
Yep.
You're talking about a totally unnecessary pipeline. There was no reason for this system whatsoever.
You keep talking about the KWA, but who's benefiting from this KWA? I feel like it's money there.
So Wall Street banks, this is not just Flint, this is all over the country. A lot of these states and cities that have been hollowed out economically, they're devastated economically. They got to borrow money to pay for things.
Right.
So bond deals are issued.
Okay.
And that just means the government is basically giving IOUs to investors.
Loaning you out money.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the government is saying to me, hey, Jordan, if you become an investor, we will issue a bond to you and we're going to pay you back for the money you loaned us plus 3% interest,
Right.
4%. The banks make a ton of money off of fronting. So the banks are financing, originally, they're financing the construction.
Okay.
So the banks issue the bonds for the KWA construction.
Okay.
And that was almost $300 million. So they make a pretty penny on the interest.
Right.
And they all have like these, added bills. It's like in your when you get a bill for something, there's always like an added line that you don't know what it's for. So the banks make a ton of money off of these bond deals. So do the financial lawyers who are a part of these bond deals. And there was financial lawyers involved with setting up the bond deal for the KWA. There were financial lawyers involved with the Detroit bankruptcy deal. They make a ton of money. Then you got to look at Jeff Wright, who is the drain commissioner in Genesee County. Seems to me to be a minor conflict of interest if you are a public official in Genesee County getting paid by the taxpayers, while also the CEO of, he says it's not privatized, but if you talk to water experts, a privatized water system.
Same thing Art Woodson told us the other day.
I do not know if he gets a salary from KWA, but I don't think he does this on a volunteer basis. KWA is my guess. He gets paid something. It's documented that KWA contractors, so companies that were building KWA, were handsomely donating to his campaigns.
Okay.
So he's making money. There was also instances where people mysteriously purchased land that ended up being on the route of the KWA. Your property value goes way up if you are next to a who's making money, also who's saving money.
Okay. Well, I never did think about that.
KWA. What is the difference between the KWA pipeline and the water Flint was getting from Detroit? The water Flint was getting from Detroit is treated already. So treated water is harder to use for, General Motors is not going to use treated water for its parts. Meatpacking is not going to use treated water. Fracking, they're not going to use treated water. KWA was delivering raw water. There was talks in the media, among politicians, KWA could help us create the blue economy, meaning we got this raw water, KWA, and we could then sell it to auto, meatpacking, steel plants, and you need a lot of water for fracking. And when Rick Snyder was governor, he was a mother fracker. He was fracking the hell out of Michigan. And whatever you think about that, I'm not trying to get into politics. Right. Fracking, you need a lot of water, and raw water that's what they use for fracking. They use raw water for GM was using raw water. Steel plants, raw water. It's a lot cheaper to get raw water.
So water is like this liquid gold.
It's funny. I'm talking to some folks about doing a documentary series, and we were thinking about calling it Liquid Gold.
Just copyright that.
Some people say the next world war ain't going to be over oil. It will be over water. I can believe that. So KWA, I think people are looking for, like, they imagine, like, was there like a bank vault with all this money? It's not like a direct line just to like a cash pile. People were going to make money in a variety of different ways. The other thing I think comes down to race. Okay. So there are entities, and this is in my opinion, this has been reported, like the Mott Foundation. Okay. And they don't like me. And they're not going to like my book, by the way.
Oh, they're about to hate.
Yeah, they're probably not going to like us too much.
They got I got a whole chapter on them. The Mott Foundation, it's been talked about. Residents have talked about it. There's a book, Demolition Means Progress, that talks about it. They seem to be very interested in regionalizing services, meaning they don't want Detroit or Flint or a major city that happens to be majority Black to control the water. They want it to be regionalized, meaning they want the county to control it. Well, Genesee County is majority white.
Right.
Flint is majority black.
Right.
Detroit is majority black.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to be a rocket science to
Right.
know what that means.
Right.
So Detroit, one of its few remaining assets back in the 2010s was its water department. Detroit, it was then called Detroit Water and Sewage. They provided Michigan 40% of Michigan's water. Well, all this talk about Detroit was price gouging Flint and all this, that was true. But at the last minute, there's emails to show this. And this is in my documentary. Detroit offered Flint to cut its rate by 48%. Basically half off. You go to the store, everything's half off.
Right.
I don't know. That's a damn good deal. If I'm a politician and I'm saying the main reason we want to switch to this new water system is because it's too expensive in Detroit, and then they're offering a 50% discount, and compared to what Flint would pay to the KWA, it would be 20% cheaper to stay on Detroit.
We heard all of that, and people still said go with the KWA.
Right.
So what happened there? What was the?
In my book, it will come out. Andy Dillon, who was the state treasurer under Snyder, he was a Democrat, but he was in Snyder's administration. I mean, he was saying confidentially under oath, the math didn't add up for Flint to go to KWA. Dennis Muchmore, Snyder's chief of staff, in emails was saying, if it's cheaper to stay in Detroit, why are we going to KWA? This was a boondoggle. This was a racket. This was a heist, a fraud, a scam, a scheme, and all the bank robbers are free. And the problem here, and I hate to keep dwelling on this, but I gotta.
Right.
And I've tried, by the way, to get my wife to move with me to Michigan because I'd like to cover this full time, but God bless her. She loves Jersey. If you are a true journalist, okay, what I mean by a true journalist is you're not in this to grow your Twitter followers. You're not in this to win awards, which I never will, and I don't care. You're not in this to be invited to cushy cocktail parties. You're not in this, have a Detroit Free Press attached to you. You're in this to put some corrupt people in jail. You're in this to deliver whatever justice you can in this, in my opinion, capitalist hellscape. You're in this to the people who are crying next to me last night because we showed our documentary at the People's Church. You're in this on behalf of them. Obviously, you got to get the facts right, but I don't believe in, you got to be a neutral journalist. You have to be a sociopath to be neutral to what happened to the people of Flint.
Right.
Being neutral does not make you objective. Right. Being neutral does not make you a journalist. If you look back through the history of journalism, it was never about we need to be neutral. That came when advertisers started advertising because they wanted to water down journalism so as to not offend the advertisers, as to not push away not be too controversial.
Right.
It's not about whether you're neutral. I could have an opinion. I could think Governor Snyder is a criminal, which I do. But do I have the facts to support it? It's all about, are your facts correct? I have broken major stories on Flint in The Guardian. I have broken stories on Flint for Vice. I have broken stories for Flint in The Intercept, the Detroit Metro Times. I've never had one fact challenged. And they didn't have to. Governor Snyder didn't have to. His officials didn't have to. You want to know why? Because your media buried it. I guarantee you the majority of people watching right now have no idea the majority of things I'm saying. Not because they're stupid, because your local media hid it from you.
Oh, yeah.
In my documentary, one of my favorite parts, because I enjoyed the look on his face, me and my former colleague, we went down to the Flint Journal. After we broke this big story, Snyder's people deleted their phones. All their text messages were gone mysteriously from 2014 to 2015.
Just gone.
Prosecutors got it. Messages were gone from 2014 and 2015. Some phones were just completely erased. The governor's press secretary, Sarah Werfel, she left his administration in November 2015. Her phone was wiped. This is the governor's press secretary. You don't think there's any messages on her phone with the governor?
Right.
If you don't know, press secretary is the spokesperson for the governor.
Like they talk all the time.
Literally, she said, she was asked, "Oh, did you have an iCloud backup?" Which is, I don't know. I don't want to get too technical, but it's like you have an iCloud on your phone, which backs up.
Right.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, come on. That's standard.
Nick Lyon, who was charged, his phone was mysteriously, and I had evidence that soon, about a week or two after Governor Snyder's press conference in October 2015, where he finally admitted the high lead levels, phones were dropped off in the state environmental department, wiped, and I quote, wiped clean. So I broke that story for The Intercept. Flint Journal wouldn't cover it.
Of course.
Detroit News wouldn't cover it. Detroit Free Press wouldn't cover it. I went down to the Flint Journal just to be kind of a rabble rouser. I knocked on the guy's door. We made pamphlets like for a fifth grader.
Right.
And I said to him, you know, I think you know about this because I've emailed you 20 times. Why? I just don't understand. Why is the Flint Journal not reporting this? You got evidence of destruction of evidence. You got evidence that the governor within that story was refusing to hand over documents to the criminal investigation.
Wow.
And he just looked at me like you know, he had seen a ghost.
Right.
And at the end of the day, listen, I don't want to attack all these journalists because, you know, people need jobs, people need to feed their family. Journalism is a dying industry. I get it. But at the end of the day, if you are not investigating this, but let's say maybe they don't have the resources to, okay. At the very least, if you are not going to report to your people, you are the Flint Journal, it's in the name, the Detroit Free Press, the Detroit News.
Right.
If you are not going to at least report what another journalist has broken, not based on my opinion, with receipts, I had the documents showing all this, then you are complicit. Let me repeat, you are complicit in the cover-up.
Yes.
This is not, oh, you say tomato, I say tomato. You think it's a story, I don't. Do you know that Ron Fonger at the Flint Journal?
Here's that name again.
I never met him. Maybe he did good work a long time ago. Basically, what I've seen is he's just reprinted state press releases for the last 8 to 10 years.
Dude, they report on Blueberry Festival
Right.
stuff around here.
Right.
That's why they have us. They don't have our mainstream media, as they call it. They make you think Flint is some type of resort.
Yeah.
That's why we are here. That's why A10 News Media Group exists.
Can I tell one more story quick?
Go ahead.
I don't want to say which reporter because I don't have permission by the source. I know of a Detroit News. First off, do people know that on the 10-year anniversary of this disaster yesterday, the Detroit News published an op-ed by Rick Snyder? Are you aware of that?
I seen something that was published by, what was the guy that Art showed us? Was it Mark Edwards or somebody? Was that someone that came in here to do some research? And
don't even get me started on Mark Edwards.
And he said
we would need 7 hours.
He said it, he said the water crisis.
The guy who, Mark Edwards, the guy who literally sued a poisoned Flint mother for $3 million.
Are you serious? Well, he said, you know, Flint overreacted. It wasn't as bad as the crisis wasn't as bad as you guys say.
Yeah, go check who's funding Mr. Edwards.
No.
So I know of a Detroit News reporter who's literally been reporting on Flint this whole time, who literally came to Flint for the first time this week. Let me repeat. I know of a Detroit News reporter who's been one of their main reporters on Flint.
Okay.
Who literally came to Flint for the first time. Maybe she's been to Flint like as a person before.
Okay.
But on this story, for the first time this week, went to a resident's home for a story and left crying because she felt so guilty because she didn't know the majority of what she was told. How the hell would you know if you've never come to Flint and talked to residents? That's why I'm wearing my company shirt. If you can support us, go to statuscoup.com/join. You could literally 16 cents a day. That's $5 a month. That's all we need. And we keep coming back to Flint and other places. But originally, I just believed what I was told before I came here. I stopped seeing it in the news, so I figured it was fixed. That's what we were just in East Palestine, Ohio, right? The train derailed.
Right.
People are very sick. It's a chemical disaster. A resident I spoke to thanked me for what I'm doing in Flint. She said, I just figured it was fixed. I never hear it in the news.
Right.
That's what most people think. And I was at a conference in 2016 and a resident came up to me. I had never been to Flint. And she said, the media's lying. This is getting worse, not better. And I convinced my boss at the time to send me. But you can't know about a cover-up. You can't build sources. You can't establish relationships if you are sitting in a cubicle in Lansing, if you are not making the effort to come out here. And the other reporters will say, well, I was at the court every day covering the case. So what? That's not investigating anything. You're just checking a box. Hey, we wrote a story on today in the criminal pretrial.
The best investigator reported that Flint seen in a long time was Ronnie Dahl, and they ran her out of here with spikes on the horse.
I mean, the bottom line is the reason that I'm able to do what I do is I'm independent. There ain't a corporate outlet in the land that would hire me.
Nope.
But at the end of the day, I think, there's so much to cover, but I think number one, I think in society, because we're all flooded nonstop by information, Twitter, podcasts, everything. It's hard to remember the crisis from yesterday, much less 10 years ago. But I think people have become kind of numb to the word crisis.
Right.
I want people to understand, I don't have to tell the people of Flint, but around the country, that this is still a disaster. When we came to shot this documentary, I don't really get shocked because all I see is misery everywhere. I mean, that's why my medication is antidepressants and whiskey. But I was kind of taken aback. You could hear about the cancer, but until you come and almost everyone I talked to said, "Oh yeah, this person I know has cancer. This person." Art Woodson telling me about 300 to 500% increase in certain types of cancers.
Yeah.
I remember your first, not to cut you off, when you was on Jimmy Doherty, I think this was about 17 or something, when you was like, when you left and came back, some of the people wouldn't even living no more.
I honestly, I'm a bit of a tough nut. I don't cry often, but yesterday I was telling John, our cameraman and video journalist, I'm not a Flint resident. I don't want to make it about me, but I couldn't help but think about all the people that I had got to know that would have been there yesterday, but they're dead now.
Tony Palladino.
Tony, Virginia Murphy, Clara Moore, Jasmine. There's so many water warriors that are gone now. And we're not talking about, people in the golden years that died peacefully in their sleep. We're talking about people I know people that have died in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. And every time I kept coming back to Flint, people I would talk to, it looked like they aged like 10 years.
Right.
I don't mean disrespect. It's just, and to me, this is this is a story of a lifetime. If you're a journalist, I could cover this for 100 years, because just when I think I've got it all, I find out more corruption.
Well, which leads me into what you're talking about now, all the people that have died, that have suffered. We have not been made whole here in the city of Flint. This water crisis settlement that they are trying to, it seems like, detour as many people as they can. We've had, I've said it over and over, like, what about all of this interest that's gaining in the banks? Well, the attorneys have came back, said, we want some of that. Meanwhile, still no payments have been issued. More interest is gaining. Like, do you think the residents will ever be made whole? And what do you think about this settlement that was offered?
I'll answer that, but I first want to say, because I think the federal government has got off the hook here. Number one, why does Libby, Montana have universal health care, but Flint, Michigan doesn't? For those of you that don't know, Libby, Montana, which is 96% white, they had an asbestos disaster. Hundreds of people died. And by the way, I think they should have free health care. I'm not attacking them at all.
Right.
During the Obamacare fight in 2009 and 2010, the senator from Montana, rightfully so, kudos to him, said, yeah, I'll vote for it if you give my people free health care. And Obama needed his vote, and they gave Libby, Montana free health care. I don't know. The only difference I know between Libby and Flint is the skin color.
Yeah.
Flint is much bigger than Libby, Montana. Why are residents I talk to telling me they're near bankruptcy from their medical bills?
Right.
Yeah. You guys got like a short-term Medicaid expansion and then a good slap on the ass. So that's number one. Outside of the settlement, I have no idea why there's not a massive campaign. And I know a lot of activists have fought for this, but citywide, I know people are tired. I get it. Physically, spiritually, you've been beaten down and beaten down. I think that should be part of any deal. Federal government should be paying for your health care, period, full stop. Number two, the EPA, federal EPA, still refuses to admit guilt.
Oh, yeah.
10 years later, the EPA has not settled with the city of Flint because there's a lot of money in the federal government. Yeah. On the Flint settlement, I mostly covered the criminal case. I don't want to speak out of turn. Right. I know that the lawyers, many of those lawyers are good people, that because they got a lot of grief. Oh, a lot of it's going to the lawyers. I know a lot of the lawyers like lost money by not taking cases that could make them more money. So I don't want to attack the lawyers, but 600 million is crumbs for what was done. In our documentary, we show Eric Mays, former Mayor Weaver. They were talking, this should be starting point should be 1.5 billion. And that's what
she told us that. She told us that. She said she went and she sat down with Snyder and said, let's start at 1.5 billion. And
Richard Baird called her right after she said that. That's in my book too. Richard Baird called her right after she said that and scolded her. You need to take back that statement. By the way, Richard Baird has already threatened to sue me for this book. So, I'm getting to the truth. A couple other people have threatened to sue me. So hopefully there's a lawyer watching who will defend me.
Because that's what I was going to say. Right, because we need them too. This is the question I want to ask. So the people are not going to get no justice, basically, what you're saying.
I don't think there's ever going to be justice in this city until, how do I say this? Because I don't live here, so I understand why only 50 people showed up yesterday. I get it. I understand why every time I come back, there's less people out, there's less people fighting. I was not poisoned. I don't know what that's like, right. And I understand, not just in Flint, but many other stories I've covered. At a certain point, you just give up hope because you harden to the fact that it's too corrupt. Nothing's going to change and I'm wasting my time.
Absolutely.
And that's where they want you.
Yep.
Right.
That's where Wall Street wants your mind. That's where the government wants your mind. That's where Sheldon Neely wants your mind. Notice there were no politicians out there yesterday. Eric Mays would have been out there.
Right.
But I don't think anything's going to change until you got thousands of people in the streets in Flint.
But how do we get, like...
I don't... By the way, Dana Nessel, the Attorney General, who is very lucky that the media here is so terrible, people need to be outside the Attorney General's office. Not one media. She's sitting here playing victim. Oh, the state Supreme Court threw out the case. Why was there no media out there demanding answers? Why did you fire this whole team? Why did you drop the financial charges? Why is it that the first investigation, they were building a financial racketeering case that is used against mafia figures? But you did not follow through on that. She has not had to answer for any of this. She spends most of her time on MSNBC talking about cases she's going after Republicans. Great. I'm not against that. She has not had to answer to anyone. She's lucky that she ran against for re-election a crackpot. So, I mean, if it were me, I'd find a company that will, donate some buses, and I'd line up Flint residents on the buses and go to the Attorney General's office.
Jordan, we can't get them on there. We can't even get people to come downtown. Like you said, it's corruption everywhere.
Yeah.
People are tired.
And people are scared too. People are scared of speaking out.
Yes,
because in Flint, you speak out too much, you might get a tax lien on your home. You might get a bill. I've talked to people. Suddenly they spoke out. Suddenly they're getting bills at their home for overdue water payments that they're not even using the water.
Suddenly you're cut to part-time on your job of 20-something plus years. Stuff happens.
I know, and this will be in my book too. I know activists who spoke out who had their brakes cut.
Well, they just put my address out.
And
council
and
person
they do
docs me.
stuff like that to scare you.
Yeah, I had a
But
council person on there. That's him.
To me, and I think this is broader than Flint. To me, the answer, and this is easier said than done. Listen, people could protest in the streets till we're blue in the face. Yeah. We could keep protesting. You could keep marching the same blocks over and over, chanting the same things. And I'm not trying to disrespect organizers, but if you ain't protesting with your wallet attached to that, they're not going to listen. I say to the college folks who are out protesting right now, I say to the BLM groups that I've covered, I say to the climate groups, people protesting for healthcare. I remember, like, we covered the George Floyd protests. I mean, when's the last time you saw millions of people across the country protesting for anything?
Right.
I said, even if 1/10 of those protesters took an economic action,
it would change.
Stopping, stop for a month, Amazon, ordering from Amazon.
Right.
Change your bank from a corporate bank to a credit union. You better believe change would come real quick.
Absolutely.
Obviously, that's easier said than done. And I also think that, and I've seen this in Flint and many other places, the capitalist system, the government, the corporations, they deploy divide and conquer techniques. So they create divisions between residents, activists. To me, listen, I like my cameraman, but if we lived in the same town and I don't like him and I don't want to have a beer with him, I can't let me not liking him distract us from the common goal.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of people in Flint that probably don't like each other for various reasons. They think you're a camera hog or you're just doing this for whatever attention. If you're fighting each other rather than Sheldon Neely, Gretchen Whitmer, Dana Nessel, Rick Snyder, they are sitting up on their, lazy boy.
Laughing.
Yeah.
Having the best time.
Been saying
I mean, I'm sure there's people that don't like you. I'm sure you don't like certain activists, this and that. Who cares?
Who gives a damn? Who gives a rat's ass? Go ahead and say it.
So the bottom line is, and we haven't even talked about Gretchen Whitmer. Remember when she ran saying, I'm going to reopen the free water stations? What happened to that? She's getting, the New York Times, the Washington Post, all these outlets are writing glowing puff pieces about her being, potentially running for president in 4 years.
She's on the golden path.
Oh, she's checked out. She's got her eye on the White House. And listen, I'm not blaming her. She wasn't in office when this happened. But I sure know a lot of people in Flint who thought the rescue choppers were coming.
Right. Well, they come every time it's an election.
Yeah.
That's when they're going to come by the droves this year. We're going to see them all standing on City Hall lawn, and we're going to fight for your justice, and we're going to get you clean water. And then guess what? 10 years later.
Listen.
Here we are.
I talked to union plumbers. I talked to Harold Harrington. Maybe some of you know him in Flint. He's a union plumber. Okay. He offered very early on, 2016, I believe. He said, my union, we will offer the state a dramatically discounted rate, and we could replace the pipes in 2 years. Citywide.
Wow.
Jordan
turned him down.
That's what I want to talk about. I'm glad you said that. What do you think about here we are, and our service lines are not even completed yet? We can't even get a straight answer. We got 1,000 to do. We got 1,500 to do. We got 500 to do. We don't know.
But they spending money.
Yes.
Well, first off, I don't want to disappoint folks. And this will be in my documentary too, because, most people don't know like basic plumbing. I didn't. Even if your service lines are fixed 100%, that's just one clean straw.
That's what we said the other day.
Your mains underneath the street are, if you look inside,
corroded.
Name your disease.
Right.
Or Google image a sexually
God.
transmitted disease. Sorry.
Are you watching Art? He sounds just like you.
The main pipes are damaged. The main pipes, it's not just lead. There was severe iron. Do you know what's food for bacteria? Iron. So the main pipes were never changed.
Wow.
So you could Jesus can bless the water from the water plant. Jesus can bless the water from the water plant. It could be the cleanest water known to man.
Right.
If it then goes through pipes that are severely corroded, you're going to have lead, copper, iron.
TTHMs.
Then that water that's already been contaminated is then going through that clean straw.
Yeah, that one little
the service line. That's just a straw that brings the contaminated water into your home. And they haven't replaced your damaged pipes inside your homes.
Thank you.
And why we named the documentary Flint Fatigue, and I shouldn't give this away, but I will. People might not know this, and this was in one of the stories that the Detroit Free Press ignored and the Detroit News ignored and Flint Journal. Former Mayor Weaver, she went to Governor Whitmer because Governor Snyder would not help her with this. And she begged for more funding from the state to help replace residents' interior plumbing. Because again, that was damaged. I mean, common sense. Do you think acid water is coming through your home for 2 years and the pipes are just going to heal themselves?
Thank you.
She was told by Governor Whitmer, and Governor Whitmer's people did not deny this to me. They didn't even respond. I can't get you more money. The state legislature has, quote, Flint fatigue.
I'm so sick of hearing that, dude, because I done heard that. Like, how you have Flint fatigue when you got people dying?
Because they're mostly white and don't live in Flint and probably drink Fiji water.
Damn.
Now, Jordan is a white man. I'm a black woman. No surprise. If it was anywhere else, do you, as an investigative journalist, like you said, we talked about, what was that, Libby, Montana. So you really think that if this was Birmingham, Michigan, hell, we can even go to Rochester Hills. We can even just go to Grand Blanc. Do you think that we would be having this problem now, 10 years later?
I don't need to think. I know. Do you know that after this went national, Ann Arbor, without a problem, preemptively replaced their pipes?
No, didn't know that.
I don't know if it was citywide, but they replaced a lot of the pipes in Ann Arbor. They did not have a problem. Ann Arbor is a pretty white place. No, I mean, listen, there was on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, I think this was in the 2010s, there was a small Legionnaires issue. The Upper East Side of Manhattan has some of the wealthiest people in the country.
I think this question for you not to cut you off is on the screen.
Okay.
Mickey, can you ask Jordan if he saw this story and made the connection? Last week, Mundy Township mega site project receives $9.2 million from state to Herman, all because of KWA raw water extending out there.
I did not see that story, but that goes back to what we said. Who's making money?
Right.
KWA. And by the way, this is another part of the boondoggle. Do you know that the city council, because Jeff Wright always likes to say the city council voted for the KWA.
Are you talking about Flint City Council?
Yeah. And they got a lot of bad information, but they voted for 16 million gallons to be pulled out for KWA to use 16 million gallons. Jeff Wright and then emergency manager Ed Kurtz, they bumped it up to 18 million gallons a day. City council didn't vote on that. Do you know that according to State Treasurer Andy Dillon, and this is in my book, State Treasurer Andy Dillon testified confidentially, I approved Flint joining the KWA as a customer. My approval was based on they would not be helping to finance it.
And we got to pay for this for how long? How long is Flint paying
Probably
for this
till you're all
pipeline?
dead.
Being honest.
But the state treasurer, he testified, and this will be in my book. I told Jeff Wright told me we already have the financing lined up. We just need Flint. We need to know if Flint's joining as a customer, because that will we'll know how big to make the pipe based on how many cities are going to be receiving water. So the state sign off, according to Dylan, was based on Flint's just going to be purchasing water. They're not going to be borrowing money to help build the pipeline. Suddenly, Dylan is out in October 2013. I don't know him, but there were reports of personal problems. So he was out. And suddenly there's financial lawyers and Wall Street banks on email chains, also in my book, about how do we get an emergency order for.
Is your book out yet?
August.
Okay, because the people want to know, and they want to know again.
You could pre-order it now. You can pre-order it now.
Where to go to?
So it's called We the Poisoned.
Write that down.
We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint water cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans. Erin Brockovich was generous enough to write the intro for the book. I learned a lot from Erin Brockovich. She's been fighting this kind of stuff way longer than me, for 30 years. So I tried to get it bumped up to be released now for the 10-year anniversary, but publishers, you're dealing with their timeline. But it'll be out in August. It's called We the Poisoned, exposing the Flint water crisis cover-up and the poisoning of 100,000 Americans. And you could pre-order it now. I don't like Amazon, so I tell you to pre-order it on Barnes & Noble.
Well, you send me some info about
Yeah, I'll
it,
send
so
it to you.
Yeah, and I think you sent me some earlier, and I'm going to
Yeah.
post it. Okay.
Mhm.
They say it's an audio.
I'm working on that now to make it
Michelle,
audio.
he working on because they just put it in.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's another thing. We talked about the media. I mean, these publishers, they only want to publish books on Trump.
No.
I had to shop around. No publisher wanted to publish this book. I'm lucky I found a publisher that, to their credit, thought it was an important story. But book publishers, how many other stories are out there? Not exactly like Flint, but corruption, this and that you can't get a book publisher on it. You can't get a local media outlet to cover it. And that's another thing. Until we get control of our media back, meaning end corporate control of the media, because Flint Journal, I don't know, they seem to be in that Mott section of town.
Blueberry festivals.
They seem to be in a cushy building in the Mott funded section.
Oh,
Yeah, you see where we are.
Yeah. But
Cash App, $810 News Media Group. Keep us going. We're gonna need it after him.
and I literally had an editor from NBC News. She's a friend of mine. She told me, honestly, this is a story, but my editors passed because they don't think there's enough interest. They don't think there's enough for the time that it would take to check the facts and lawyers look through it. They don't think there's enough bang for the buck.
You know why we couldn't get a spot in Flint? We in the township.
Yeah.
Why do you rent us a spot to do this?
Because you tell the truth.
Talk about
We
right.
couldn't get one.
Why the hell do you think they were trying to? The Flint City Council, it seemed like most of their business was trying to get rid of Eric Mays.
Yeah, now they're trying to get rid of us.
They on us now. They admonished
He
us about
actually
2 hours.
went to a building and they said, "You take Winter's Hall? No, you can't right here. You can't."
Yeah, couldn't do it.
I always tell people, you might think how corrupt it is, times that by 10.
Right.
It's way more corrupt than you know. It's way more corrupt than even I know. I'm always finding out worse things. But I got to say, I think, to me, why I always tell my audience this is bigger than just Flint. This is the playbook they're using in other places.
Well, that's my next question before you expand on that. Do you think that we are just a fucking research project?
Guinea pigs.
That's what I said. The Hunger Games.
Oh, I call it the economic Hunger Games all the time.
But see,
Wow, that's
I was caught. Because every day it seemed like it was something new. You don't know what's the next thing gonna be. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, even with the council, because I'm looking here like how they went at Mays. Some of the things you see with Mays, because he talked about the KWA. That's bringing that up can cause problems around here.
Right.
And I seen what Mays fighting. You seen what he got dogged out. I mean, they always printing stories on him. Good or bad, they printed stories on him to put him in the worst light. And you can see we got a mayor going every time he has something, he always say the water the most tested.
He says we've went from crisis to recovery.
Well, this will come out in my documentary and book. In 2018, you got the audience probably doesn't know this because the media buried this too. We came to Flint. I knocked on 400 doors in Flint because I got several tips that Snyder's environmental department was cheating on the water testing. So for Flint residents who remember, they were telling residents to run your water the night before you take a test. I found out the environmental department was actually going into people's homes and running their water, not the night before, right before the test. That's completely against federal regulations. It's not like, oh, it's frowned upon, but not against. That's against the law to run water. You're supposed to, when you take a water sample, the water is supposed to not be used for 6 hours. They were going into people's homes who they didn't know any better. Nobody's an expert on water testing. And why would they be? They were running people's water, meaning you're flushing out the lead and then you're putting the sample bottle under. Erin Brockovich said, this is a crime to me. She said the people who did it should be in jail. She said all the water stations should be reopened because the testing and the data they used was bullshit. Literally, I'll never forget it. A woman opens her door on her porch, nearly bald from the cancer treatment. And MDEQ sent an official into her home. They ran the water for about a minute. Her test came back normal. I don't know definitively if she had lead in her home, but I know they tested the wrong way. She was 35 and got thyroid cancer. No family history of this. Other people I talked to, they were sick, and their home. One guy I talked to, he was a Bernard Mader. He was in his 60s, a Korean or 70s war veteran. He had 11,000 parts per billion found in his home.
And what's normal? Tell the people what's
normal. Well, first of all, I want to dispel the myth. The 15 parts per billion is not normal. That's what the EPA says is the normal limit. That is not a public health standard. That is a corrosion standard. The normal the normal level of lead is 0.
Okay. 0.
For children, especially. Children, any amount of lead you'll have permanent issues. But, adults, if you go to a doctor, any doctor will tell you everybody's different. So maybe your immune system, 13 parts per billion of lead, you'll be okay. For me, maybe 4 parts per billion of lead will destroy me because I have pre-existing issues or my immune system is weaker. That's why, and this is not just for lead, this is for other things too.
And most African Americans do have pre-existing health conditions.
Exactly. So when the media reports Flint's lead levels are meeting EPA regulations, well, people have been fighting those regulations for decades because they're based on bullshit, and they are based on corporations owning the federal government. When they say elevated levels of lead, I always say, what does that mean? Any levels of lead are elevated. You shouldn't have lead in your water. Same thing with the lead in the lead paint crisis of the 1970s, 80s. People shouldn't be exposed to lead. We have people having arsenic in their water. We got people with chloroform in their water, PFAS, the forever chemicals that are being found. So bottom line, you should have no lead, and your water is not safe at 5 parts per billion of lead. This is not just Flint, all cities. Cleveland has high lead, Pittsburgh, Detroit. Your water is not safe at 5 parts per billion. Your water is not safe at 3 parts per billion. 0 is the number. And by the way, Sheldon Neely doesn't want you to know this. Gretchen Whitmer doesn't want you to know this. Your city's water system was created for a city of 200,000 people. The pipes system is 600 miles long. your water is stagnant in many places of the city.
Absolutely.
Because it's going through pipes. It's going through sections of Flint that have no homes.
No homes.
Abandoned homes, abandoned lots. We've driven through parts of the city that look like a forest.
Right.
So when water is moving slow, it loses the chemical treatment that's supposed to protect it from lead and other things, and bacteria is created. And that's what happens when it's stagnant and moving slow. The chlorine that's added to the water to prevent bacteria, it gets soaked up. So then you don't have enough chlorine, which creates bacteria. There is no federal testing for Legionnaires.
Well, she did this. Whitmer did this big budget infrastructure bill. I didn't see Genesee County. Well, I seen Genesee County in there, but I didn't see Flint. Why is that, Jordan?
I'll tell you why. And this isn't to attack Flint residents, but this is just the way it is. Gretchen Whitmer knows that Flint's mostly Democrat, and they're going to vote for her. Dana Nessel knows that Flint's mostly Democrat, and they're going to vote for her because the Republican is worse. Dana Nessel, Gretchen Whitmer, Sheldon Neely, or whomever, they know that most people don't vote.
Right.
They know that their bread is buttered in Detroit and Flint. That's where they get, and this isn't just them, by the way. This is Biden, this is all of them. They'll roll up during election time, show up at the churches. I think the pastors are a bit of a problem too. Not all, but
enough of them.
Enough of them.
Okay.
By the way, I'm sorry he's sick. I know Dan Kildee is sick, and I wish him well, but I was sending Dan Kildee's office a lot of this information, including that they were cheating on the testing. I couldn't get the man to say anything. I couldn't get the man to do anything. I had to corner him in a library in Flint.
Well, Jordan, that's another one of my questions as you go on in detail about that. Who the hell is advocating for us in DC? We got mayor, we got a state rep, we got a governor, we got senators. Congressman, who is advocating for Flint?
I could tell you that I know for a fact the late Elijah Cummings, who obviously didn't represent Flint, but he was a congressman, represented Maryland. He was the chair of the House Oversight Committee. I know for a fact that he was planning on dragging Rick Snyder back in front of Congress because Rick Snyder, which my reporting shows, perjured himself 16 ways to Sunday in front of Congress, lied through his teeth. Elijah Cummings was going to bring him back, and it was still within the statute of limitations for perjury, and he died sadly.
Yeah.
Who's advocating for you? Hell if I know.
Well, thanks for telling us the truth.
Debbie Stabenow is one of the senators. She's an older white lady. Her office never responded to me, story after story I broke, to say anything or do anything. Kildee, same thing. Gary Peters is a senator. I've never heard
of any. What about our state rep now? I know the state rep was fighting
the state rep for Flint has to
Neely's wife?
Yeah.
She's not fighting for us?
I don't know her. Maybe she's a pleasant lady, but I don't know of anything she's doing.
She do hair good. That's all I know.
And by the way,
she doesn't even go to Lansing. She's not fighting.
Yeah, she just does hair.
By the way, Sheldon Neely, I truly wonder. Sure seems odd to me, those election results twice.
Well, it only took us 15 hours to get them.
I am not a Trumper. I'm not like the elections rigged kind of person. Yeah. But something didn't smell right to me that first election between him and Weaver. Seemed he won by a lot more than anybody was expecting.
Even himself.
That did not seem right. And by the way, Sheldon Neely, he's never had the answer for the fact that he was saying back in the early 2010s you could drink water from the Flint River, no problem.
So how much is he in this?
Bottom line, if you look at when he became mayor, one of the first things he was talking about was KWA. It sure seemed like he wanted to move Flint on KWA.
Which he never talked about with the campaign team.
And, I'll give a little sneak peek of my book. And Neely could deny it, but I have him on tape saying it.
Oh, tell.
By the way, Michigan, for those of you who don't know, is a one-party consent law, meaning you can record someone without their approval.
Told ya guys.
So
told ya, people didn't want.
I don't want to give too much because I don't want to.
I
I don't want to give too much because I do hope people buy the book. But back in 2019, I was in Flint. I was premiering a different documentary we did at a church, and Neely had just announced he was running for mayor. I don't know if he knew me or whatever, but he sat down next to me at the church basement during a luncheon or whatever. And he started, shitting on the state to me and shitting on Weaver and all this. And I just kind of let him go. I don't know if he knew like I was a journalist. I think he just thought I was like a filmmaker or whatever. So we started talking. I let him talk, butter him up a bit. That's kind of like my technique. Like,
you're great.
And then get to what I want to talk about. So at the end, I said, a lot of residents I speak to keep telling me I got to dig more into this Mott Foundation. That they were pulling a lot of strings behind the scenes with declaring a financial emergency in Flint. And boy, these emergency managers sure seem to have a lot of Mott connections. And boy, a lot of these real estate developers that are gentrifying Flint sure seem to have a lot of funding from Mott. And, et cetera, et cetera. First, he asked me, have you ever read the book, Demolition Means Progress? There's a whole chapter on Mott and their history of racism, supporting school segregation, supporting redlining. They denied it and, went after the author. I'm sure they'll go after me too. So I said, yeah, I have read that. And then he said, I don't want to say exactly what he said, but he said a whole lot about Mott and them pulling a lot of the strings that led to the water crisis.
He did?
I got it on tape. And by the way,
you want to premiere it here today on 810 News Media Group? Just
for the audience to know, I am healthy, happy, and not suicidal.
Me either. Me either.
I am happy, healthy, and suicidal. I'm not suicidal. And if anything happens to me, watch this. You know who to look at.
Shit,
but
damn, we always getting into some shit.
But Sheldon Neely said things to me about Mott. And by the way, you could ask Karen Weaver and others. If you get on the bad side of Mott, you quickly find yourself on the receiving end of a electoral recall. If you get, meaning a recall campaign is sprung. If you get on the bad side of Mott, suddenly state funding dries up. If you are a rubber stamp for Mott, if you do whatever Mott wants, you can stay in office as long as you want. But Sheldon Neely said some things about Mott to me that were very, very, very interesting. And I think Flint residents are going to be very interested in it.
Just give us just one little snippet what he said about Mott.
Let's just say Mott had a lot to do with who Governor Snyder appointed as emergency managers.
Sheldon.
A lot to do.
Sheldon.
And, it's very interesting when politicians don't know they're being taped because they tend to tell the truth. So it's interesting because I reached out to his spokesperson at the time. I was going to write a story on it about this, and she just made believe that I was just making it up, that this never happened, that he didn't, that my quotes weren't accurate, this and that. I said, "Are you sure about that?"
Yeah.
I don't think they knew I recorded it.
Yeah.
So if he wants to, when it comes out, say that it was an impersonator, that's fine. But there's witnesses that we talked, but he's on tape.
He's like, yeah.
He's on tape saying these things. I don't want to give it all away, but basically he said Mott was pulling the strings for who would be the emergency managers. I know,
Thank you,
I know,
Sheldon, for being our mayor.
I know for a
We're
fact,
outta
and this
here.
is, I know for a fact that this is in the book, and this is in the book, that officials with Governor Snyder's office met with Bill White at the time.
And Bill White is.
He was the head of Mott for many years. He's gone. I think he passed away. And other Mott officials to broker a deal for who would be the emergency manager. I know that for a fact. And the Mott Foundation didn't even deny it. They just said, well, we can't find this meeting on our calendar, but yes, we have discussions all the time with government on. But the truth is, there did not have to be a financial emergency declared in Flint. There were other ways of earning revenue to balance Flint's books. There was no need for a financial emergency. There was no need for emergency managers. This was, let me be clear, a privatization scheme on steroids. They wanted to privatize your water and a whole lot of other services. And they wanted, basically, there's a lot of talk in America right now about democracy is at stake and everyone's worried about Trump. They basically wanted Rick Snyder to be the king of Flint and Detroit, by the way. Let's not forget Detroit was in emergency management too. And I believe a lot of people don't realize this because it's hard to remember before Trump. Rick Snyder wanted to run for president. That was reported.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Oh, he was going to Republican meetings and making presentations in front of donors in 2015 while this was going on. And Rick Snyder wanted to run for president, and he wanted to run on the message, I'm an economic wizard who rescued Detroit and rescued Flint by basically running government like a business. And we could do that in the federal government. So, yeah, with Neely, all I could say is I don't live in Flint, but I talk to enough people. I don't know how 10 years later he has not fully replaced your pipes. And we've already established, even if they replace the service lines, that's not nearly enough.
Right.
He hasn't replaced the pipes. He says the water is safe based on bullshit testing.
Yep.
When, Little Miss Flint literally just tweeted, I think 2 days ago, bottles showing brown water.
Yeah. We just had a guy that came the council Monday with his filter. All kind of shit was in it. He said 4 people on his block had cancer. He's the only one left.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you, Brita filters do not filter out bacteria.
Thank you.
Well, what
lead.
about the pure ones that they're giving away at City Hall? Have you walked in City Hall and looked at the service desk and seen those pretty purple boxes that they're giving away?
These are the equivalents of giving a Band-Aid for a gunshot wound.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's what these filters are.
So they're no good, is what you're telling me.
Listen, I'm not like a water filter expert, but I do know certain bacteria, chemicals can only be filtered out in many cases by full reverse osmosis systems, which are very expensive. But these filters, they go bad quickly. In many cases, they might help reduce lead, but they create bacteria issues. So you're solving one problem and creating another. By the way, with boil water alerts, when they're telling you to boil your water, if there's lead in your water and you boil it, you're intensifying the lead.
Right.
A cocktail.
So no, the filters are not enough. And frankly, I don't want to be crass, but if you as a female was sexually assaulted, would you be relying on the perpetrator to do the investigation?
No, I've always said that the state is the one that's poisonous. Why are we going to them to help us?
So how can you trust the state of Michigan's testing numbers? And I've already broken stories that they cheated on the testing.
Right.
How can you trust the city of Flint's testing when they're understaffed? They've declared
in violation
They've declared the water fine when half the time they're only testing 50 locations
and can't even get all of them done.
At the end of the day, you got to trust yourself, and you got to trust your symptoms. Because I talked to Flint residents early on during this, and even in 2017 and 2018, after Snyder declared the water restored. when they would leave town, you know, maybe they had a different place, so they went to family out of town. Their symptoms were better. But when they came back and were showering in Flint water, they're drinking the water. And, you know, most Flint residents cannot afford to go buy bottled water cases. So they're stuck.
Animals. Think about the animals.
And the same thing is going on right now in East Palestine, Ohio. Residents leave for a few days, their symptoms get better, and then they come back. Same thing.
Well, I want to tell you this, and then I want to ask you a couple questions. So my daughter, she used to come into Flint, stay at my mom's house, right along that Ballinger Highway, Legionella corridor, Cancer corridor, and she would break out like bumps all over her face. We go back home in Grand Blanc, clear up for the weekend, comes back Monday, uses water again, bumps come back. And my parents were like livid. What are you doing to this kid? What are you doing to my grandbaby? Comes to find out it's from the water. They have to, and still people have to use bottled water for everything. But they took all of our water pots away. People are making decisions now. Do I go and buy a case of water? Do I feed my children? Do I buy gas? They're making a choice to live or die, literally. Before we hear from the nation, because I know a lot of people want to call in and just comment, what is the worst story that you can think of that you've heard come out of this water crisis?
I'll tell you two things. One, the one that was most emotional for me, in 2018, I was, you know, knocking on doors for that story, investigating whether Snyder's environmental department was cheating on the testing. And they were, by the way. And I came up to a porch on a front porch on Wolcott Street on the north side of Flint. And I saw a young mother, and she had her baby sitting on her lap. Her daughter was 1 at the time. And she had white sores all over her arm, her earlobe, her body. And they had just moved. That was in June, and they had just moved into the home in May. This was 2 months after Rick Snyder declared Flint's water restored and shut down the free water pods. I asked, was she having skin problems before you moved in here a few weeks ago? No. I said, how long do you typically bathe her? 20 minutes. And she breaks out from the water. The mother told me she doesn't have a car. A lot of Flint residents don't have transportation, so she can't go get bottled water. She even called Child Protective Services on herself to try to get help, try to get water, because Snyder shut down the water stations. If that wasn't bad enough, I was like, you know, about to tear up. Her son, who I believe was like 5 or 6 at that time, she told me that he used to be able to say the whole alphabet and used to be able to like count to 10, but he gets stuck now. And I didn't want to like be offensive, but I said, do you mind if I talk to him and, you know, see for myself? And I just asked him to, you know, hey, you want to do the numbers with me? And we started counting, and I just saw it's one thing to hear about kids being damaged. It's another thing to see it in real time. And I just saw him kind of get stuck at 4. And I saw he was just struggling to, after that, like just his face was kind of just going blank. And he just couldn't go past 4. And I started tearing up, because it's one thing in society as adults, not that we should be poisoned, but as a human, when you're seeing children be permanently damaged, you'd have to be pretty psychopathic not to be affected by that. So between seeing her daughter with all this rashes everywhere and sores, hearing a young mother who, by all accounts, was a great mom, She wants to call Child Protective Services on herself to get bottled water for her kids. And then to see her kid, 5-year-old, can't count past 4 anymore. It just broke my heart. And that's what I think is missing in the media here. The media here isn't knocking on that woman's door.
No.
They're not coming to Flint to talk to any residents.
No.
They're just basically regurgitating whatever bullshit propaganda they're given by the state or the city. So that was the worst that I personally saw up close. And that mother, I followed up with her, and her phone got disconnected and they got evicted from their house.
And you think it's water is just a basic human right.
It should be.
Look at the war overseas, and you seen how they were pouring cement into their water system over there. And you think like, wow, look at what's going on over there. But then right here in Flint, and we send trillions of dollars over there.
Do you know in Afghanistan, it came out that literally the generals were ordered, you need to spend $300 million a day. I can't do math, but that's over 20 years, $300 million a day in Afghanistan. But 10 years later, you don't have free health care. Your pipes haven't been replaced. I saw a lot of construction yesterday downtown. It ain't for the pipes.
It's for the bricks. That's second go around, by the way.
I mean, in what world? You cannot say that this is a democracy if you pay taxes, if you obey the law, you raise your kids, and then you're poisoned. Even if you want to give the government the benefit of the doubt and say it was an accident, which I don't. And then they cover it up and leave you to slowly die. That's not a democracy. The other story I want to share, there was a woman, Lori Carter, in Flint, and she got really sick. And the hospitals here were telling her they couldn't figure out. That was another part of the scandal. McLaren and other hospitals were telling residents, we don't know what it is, when they knew it was Legionnaires. She went to Chicago, to a hospital in Chicago, and she found out she had Legionnaires. And she died. So she's told
That was it, and she died.
She was told, here, they don't know what it is. She had to go to a hospital in Chicago. I mean, there's a lot of stories like that. The doctors here
wouldn't write anything. They wouldn't write anything in the medical records. And the people that are in that want you to turn in all this paperwork after paperwork, booklets for this water settlement crisis money. We don't have any medical records to back up.
How do you have a mass poisoning and not have a health registry right away? They didn't have a health registry right away to track people's illnesses. So Flint was nearly 100,000 people then. Now it's lost 20,000 people. Who the hell knows, the people who have left, what's happened to them?
Right.
You got to track people's health when so many people are sickened to see what, is there a spike in cancer? What kinds of cancer? How do you treat if you don't have the data? There was no health registry. That wasn't on accident. I mean, there's just so many things that, a resident said it to me, and it's in our documentary. I can't help but feel that this was intentional, just to wipe us poor people out of here. Just make it a college town.
I always said that they want the land.
They said it's another building on fire, Nightingale.
I heard about that.
Northern was on fire. It's like we got a little pyromaniac running around here.
But we can't catch that. Can't catch whoever setting everything on fire.
And I just want to be clear, and this isn't just about Flint. This is about all places, because we live gentrification is going on all over this country. I call it economic terrorism, because gentrification is too boring of a word. It's terrorism. They are building up 5 to 10 blocks, beautifying it, and leaving the rest of people to fend for themselves. I go all across the country. You could be in Chicago. Detroit, for example, is great for 10 blocks, and then you drive 5 minutes down the road and it looks like Baghdad.
Right.
Same thing in Flint. So don't listen to Neely. Don't listen to any of these politicians who tell you, oh, we're growing in Flint. Business is coming to Flint. We have economic development. They love that word. Urban renewal. That's another one they love.
Yep, you hear that too.
You hear all this stuff? Who's it growing for? Half the people I know probably can't afford to go to most of the restaurants, bars, you know.
Afford an apartment here anymore at market value.
So they like to throw out these phrases and point to buildings, and we have a new cultural center or a new tech hub. That's great. But what about all the empty lots? What about all, the areas that look like a forest? What about all these abandoned homes that could be affordable housing? What about redoing the infrastructure in the city, making it smaller for the population you have now so you don't have stagnant water? Why? I mean, the federal government, it would be pennies to replace all the pipes in Flint. And Obama, by the way, refused to issue a disaster declaration for Flint.
But he came here and drank the water. I mean, he said it was fine.
He approved an emergency declaration. A disaster declaration is different. If you issue it as a disaster, there's a lot more federal money, and you could have had the Army Corps of Engineers come to Flint, dig up these pipes.
And be done.
Same thing. They won't issue a disaster declaration in East Palestine, Ohio, where the train blew up, a toxic chemical plume. But, let me tell you something. If this happened in, I don't know, if this happened in Beverly Hills, the National Guard would be in town the next day.
Absolutely.
If this happened on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, it would be fixed immediately. So this is a race issue. This is a class issue. And my message to Flint, unfortunately, I don't think voting is, I'm not telling you not to vote, but I don't think just voting is you're not going to vote your way out of a corrupt system. People need to be on the streets. I'm not saying be violent, but people need to be protesting with their wallets, because this country is I call it the United Corporations of America. We don't have a government. We have a system of legalized bribery. Our government is not representing you. It's representing Wall Street banks, pharmaceutical companies, oil companies, Silicon Valley, real estate developers, and the media helps them with the messaging.
Yep.
That's just it. Yep. So you can think somebody could come along and seem like, oh, this candidate is different. And I'm not saying don't vote for them, but human beings are not perfect. And even if somebody gets elected and they are not corrupt, they could get in office, and I'm not saying they're corrupt, but the pressure is too much. The corruption on them is too much that they can't fight it, and they end up not delivering for you. Even if it's not because they're corrupt, it's because there's too much power, and there's too many, entities coming at them. I mean, Weaver told me, it's in the documentary, she had Snyder breathing down her neck to declare the water safe. She had real estate developers breathing down her neck to declare the water safe. To her credit, she did not. I know a lot of people, have issues with certain things with her. She would not declare the water safe, and that's why they were dangling money over her, and then they pulled it because she wouldn't declare the water safe. So to me, yes, you could vote for politicians who you think will fight for you, and maybe some will. There's very few. But the only way to get mass change, I believe, is you got to protest in the streets, and you have to create economic organizing. And what I mean by that is take one action. What's a major economic driver in Flint? You'd have to tell me, and stop giving them money. With that, as best you can, have a pot for mutual aid. For example, if you're boycotting Amazon, you don't want to hurt the actual Amazon workers, because they have to feed their families. So you want to be able to, that's the whole point with unions of having a strike fund. So when workers go on strike in unions, they have a strike fund. So at least you could give the workers some money while they're on strike. So when you economically organize, you have to organize to have a mass pool of mutual aid that goes to the workers affected. I'm not talking about the Goldman Sachs workers. I don't give a shit.
Right.
But I'm talking about if you're, boycotting Amazon or you're boycotting Walmart, you don't want the workers there to suffer. But bottom line, the only economic boycotts I see sometimes are like the first day of March or, they don't care.
Right. You ready to hear from the nation?
Please.
Let's hear from some people.
And if Dana Nessel or Sheldon Neely want to call in, I'm all ears.
Good morning, caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name and where you calling from?
This is Ray Hall from Flint, Michigan.
Hey,
Hey, I was finally, I'm glad to get in here, you know what I'm saying, and talk to you. But the name of the thing, I'm trying to get straight to the point, is that Jordan has his book coming out, and I don't know, 8/10. He said he got to August to do it, so I'm gonna give you some time to think about it because I seem kind of afraid about his book, But what happened at this time right now, you're doing advertising, so I'm willing to pay the advertising fee to bring his book on your show so that people can buy it and advertise it on his show so they can understand, get to it, and then do something where a lot of people in Flint can't read; they're illiterate. So the vocal part, the literacy part will be brought to the show. I don't know how far, because I don't want to get 810 in trouble. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I'm talking about at this time. So I'm just trying to get to that point. I wanted to say a lot of things, but one more thing is that with the rioting in the street or the people all gathering, that's why they're arresting people downtown. They got millions of dollars. If you get caught, if they can get you for being violent or thinking you violent, they get money for that. So everybody that they arrest or throw out the door or whatever, they get money for that. They got grants and everything that was given to the city of Flint, and that's why they're being violent. So when you call people to come downtown or come to City Hall, that's why they're arresting you, because they got millions of dollars for that. So they try to get money through everything that we do. But I'm going to let go. Just something keep telling me to stop talking.
Oh, you got 10 seconds.
But,
you got 10 seconds.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I'm saying is that I would love to pay for Jordan's advertisement on your show.
Okay.
And every month or week.
I happily give out my
call back.
Okay, and keep listening. He's responding.
I happily give out my email to anyone who wants it. It's Jordan Chariton. So first name Jordan, last name Chariton at statuscoup.com.
Like status, we'll type it up there. You got
Jordan Chariton at statuscoup.com. I really appreciate that offer. Email me. Also, if you're wondering where you could find more of this reporting, subscribe on YouTube. Status Coup is our YouTube channel.
You need to advertise with us. You over here advertise.
you think I got a lot of money?
Good morning, caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good morning. This is Shu from Flint. How you doing?
Hey, Shu.
Listen, I listened to this young man, and he's absolutely right about everything he's saying. But I've been saying that forever and a day, that you've got, as long as you have rich, powerful white men in charge of stuff, you're never going to get what you need, especially rich, powerful, racist white men. But I have a question for this young man that I hope that everybody nationally is listening to. I have one question for him. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My question to this young man, and it's not personal, but I want to know what, and he can tell me because I know he knows, what makes white men think that they are better than anybody else? What makes them think that they are so much better than anybody else?
Okay. Thank you, Shu. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I can't speak for all white men, but I will say I think most white people by birth, whether you are intentionally taught this or you just get it by kind of the culture, develop subconscious racism and stereotypes. Not that you hate black people or brown people, but you through culture kind of are taught that you're superior.
Conditioned to believe this.
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of learning that has to be consciously unlearned. if you're a conscious white person. And I learned a lot, actually. I covered the protests at Standing Rock in North Dakota a few years ago, and I learned a lot from Native Americans. It just blew my world to learn, because they don't teach you the truth either in school about our history. So my best way to answer that is white people really need to, I think you learn best about your own kind of privilege and your own white supremacy, even if you're not like you don't hate black people or anything like that, but you just subconsciously kind of feel superior. I think you learn best by speaking to people and observing and experiencing, seeing up close what they experience. That's been my experience. Why I keep coming to this, because trust me, covering Flint does not make me money. In fact, I probably lost money. Keep coming back here. But why I keep coming back is because I see the injustice up close, and I don't deal with that as a white man, and I'm not okay with it for other people to have to deal with it.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. Couple more callers before we get off here. 810-207-5058. The phone lines are open. If you want to call in, I know it's not running across the bottom. Okay, here we go.
Well, I'm going to get a lot of emails today.
Nah, man, you know what? Press 1 to start the call. Oh my God, man.
Press 1. The call will start at the beep.
Good morning, caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name and where you calling from?
Well, good morning, Winters.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mickey.
Good morning.
And good morning, Mr. Jordan.
Morning.
It's Tia.
Well, let me say this, Winters and Mickey. This has been one of, I think, since you guys have done the morning bump, one of the best shows to date.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
My question is for Mr. Jordan. Having given us the litany of information that you've done today, with where Flint stands still in the water crisis, who do you think, in your opinion, have guns big enough to litigate this situation where we are right now? If you have any ideas, can you please share that with us? Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It's a great question. I honestly think.
Press 1 to the call will start at the beep.
1 second, please hold. 1 second.
I think you need two things here. Number one, I think you need federal intervention at this point, because sadly, based on Michigan's laws, the statute of limitations for most of the crimes that were committed here have passed. So I believe you need federal intervention here to make an exception. Sometimes in law, a defendant can get off by citing bad counsel. Well, I would cite bad counsel of your attorney general's office if I were the taxpayers, and I would make demands for the Department of Justice to come in here. I think they should have never fired Todd Flood and his team, but if you can't restart with that, I think the federal government, there should be a law passed to reopen the Flint investigation. I think perjury, which only has a 5-year statute of limitations. So Snyder did perjure himself in front of Congress. The statute of limitations has passed. I think there should be an exception made to that. And Congress should bring him back, because there's enough evidence that he lied about when he first learned about Legionnaires. And there will be more about that in my book. And secondly, I think every single person in Flint should say, I am not voting for Joe Biden unless he guarantees Flint Medicare for all, full stop.
There you go. All right.
Because he's the president.
Absolutely.
So if everyone in Flint says, I will not vote for Joe Biden unless he guarantees Flint universal health care, well, Joe Biden ain't winning Michigan if he gets no votes in Flint. And Joe Biden needs to win Michigan to stay president.
Good morning, caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name and where you calling from?
This is St. Louis.
Hey, St. Louis.
Winters and Mickey, Jordan, I just said last week that the media should have been covering this. And I even said, Aaron Donkovich with Julia Roberts playing in that movie,
It reminds me of Flint.
Mm-hmm.
Residents, now that you see all this that's coming to light, Jordan telling the truth, Art been telling the truth, Neely has been lying to you all. Neely wants to still cover up shit. Your people are dying. Your residents, your family are dying. Your babies are dying. What more do you all need? Get your asses up. Get out and protest. Because the only one that benefits are the lawyers. And the ones that's keeping it quiet. That's all I got to say. I'm at tears. But that's all I got to say for right now.
Thank you, St. Louis.
Can I say something to that?
Yeah, he wants to keep watching. He wants to respond to you.
I am.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if people from the rest of America watch.
She's from St. Louis, Missouri.
Yeah, I'll say this to the rest of America. Right now, there are college kids protesting across this country for Gaza. And whatever people think about that, I'm not getting into that. I believe what's going on in Gaza is a genocide, and I'm a Jew. But genocide is not only immediate bodies piling up. Genocide is not only the immediate, thousands or millions of people die right away. There's something called a slow-moving genocide, where people are just left to slowly die, but they were killed. This is a slow-moving genocide,
Yes, it is.
and it's not the only place in America, but to me, it's one of the biggest. You can't even write a movie where a whole city, 100,000 people are poisoned, and nothing's done about it.
Right.
Nothing.
How is that not a genocide? And they put out a number that only 12 people died from the Flint water crisis. There might be 12 people dying a day of cancer and kidney failure and liver failure. And I mean, I talk to residents. I'm hearing from residents all the time, different things, rare cancers. So the rest of the country needs to know. I know it's hard to reactivate yourself because you don't see the long lines for water like you did in 2016. Right. And Rachel Maddow is not down here, and don't even get me started on her. But this is still a disaster zone, and this is a genocide, and the rest of the country better wake up, because if they get away with it here, it's coming to your town next. It might not be the water. Maybe where you are, it's the air, the soil. It might be fracking. It might be coal mining. It might be BP oil spill. There's places in America that have diesel fuel found in their water, in Hawaii. But if they get away with it here, this is why I keep coming back to Flint. If they get away with poisoning 100,000 people, covering it up, and then leaving them to slowly die, that is the playbook for the rest of this country. So everybody, I know that there's a lot of different crises, Gaza, mass shootings, climate, poverty, inflation. We could go down the list. But at a basic root, this is not just a slogan. Water is life. You cannot stay alive for longer than 5 or 6 days without water.
That's true. Good morning, caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. This is Jessica from Cali.
Hey, Jessica from California.
Morning. So I asked Arthur Woodson this question either yesterday or the day before, but I want to pose it to you as well, because I think it's important to get and keep on record all of the local as well as state level officials who are responsible, who are knowingly complicit in either obstructing the resolution of this water crisis or covering it up. So you've covered this quite a bit. So I'm interested in your thoughts on the extent to which the Flint City Council, either the current Flint City Council, the previous one, or the one before that, have either separately or collectively been knowingly complicit in slowing the resolution of this water crisis or even covering it up.
Thank you, Jessica. Keep listening. He's going to answer your question.
All right. Bye-bye.
I mean, I don't even think I need to say much. All I need to say is look at the outpouring of mourning and grief when Councilman Eric Mays died. Why do you think that is? Because out of a rotating cast of characters on city council, you had basically one man saying a lot of the things I'm saying. And by the way, now that he's passed, you know, journalistically, I have to protect sources. But when somebody passes away, you could reveal I got a lot of my information from Eric Mays. So to answer your question, it's not a matter of who on council is taking specific acts to cover it up. They're covering it up by not speaking the truth. They're covering it up by not demanding universe. If I was on city council, I'd be every day. Water and free healthcare. Water, free healthcare. So to answer your question, they are complicit in covering it up by some of them towing Neely's line that this is now a trust issue. The water is safe. It's about trust. That's bullshit. They are covering it up. None of them, other than Eric Mays, was talking about where is the charges for the financial fraud. Why did Dana Nessel drop these charges? Eric Mays is quoted in my book of saying, I've never heard of an attorney general dropping these charges. It's crazy.
Nobody ever.
It's in the documentary too. So until you get city council members, maybe they don't have to have it. Nobody will have his personality. He's one of a kind, was one of a kind. But until you got city council members that are standing up in uproar, I mean, to this day, if I was on city council, I'd be telling residents, not one of you should be paying your water bills until all the pipes, not just the service lines. And I am going to push legislation for that.
Well, hell, they take your houses. Now they're putting liens on your houses if you don't pay your water bill.
Yeah.
Last caller. You've been bumped in. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Lottie calling in from Flint.
Hey, Lottie. It's good to hear
I just
Flint
wanted
calling in
to
today.
go back on what he said about the vote. I think in the Black community, we have been programmed to think that our vote do not count. But it does count, because if it didn't count, when the Muslims down in Hammertrack, they vote for the primary to say undecided. It got them, I think, 28 or 23 billion sent to their country. So that means that vote do count. So I just want people to understand we got to learn how to hold our vote. I think Ice Cube said this a couple of years ago, and people call him a sellout, when he said, let's come up with a contract and tell them this what we want for our vote and make them sign it before we give our vote. Mm-hmm. Everything is a bought system. Everything is paid for. So I don't understand why we as a whole can't come together. We can't be scared. It can't just be the 10 of us or the 200 of us when it's 1.5 million of us. That don't count. We have to do it in numbers. It's all for one. Like when they used to boycott back in the day, we have to stand together as one strong, committed community. We can't be scared because our votes do count. It's important that we inform our elderly about the people that they think have did good by them and get our younger people out to vote because they count. We got to get it in our head that we do count and that we do matter. That's all I want to say. And y'all have a good day. And this show has been great today.
Thank you so much, Lottie. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Amen. First of all, I want to be clear. I'm not saying don't vote or your vote doesn't matter. Your vote does matter. I'm saying what that wise woman was saying. Hold your vote hostage. Make demands for your vote. I don't care if you're black, white, purple.
Quit giving it away.
I don't live here. I'm not telling you what to do. But in my mind, if I lived in Detroit or Flint, and I know Mr. Biden, President Biden, needs our votes to win Michigan, not just President Biden, any Democrat, I would make 3 demands. In the case of Flint, number 1, I want the federal government in here to replace these pipes. The main pipes in the street, all the service lines, and our interior plumbing at no cost to the resident.
There you go.
And I want it done in 6 months to a year, which is engineering. It is possible.
Right.
It should have been done 8 years ago. Number two, we expect and demand universal health care in Flint, which is a drop in the bucket for the federal government to pay for. If Libby, Montana got it, you should get it. And number three, I demand federal intervention, criminal justice. If the Attorney General of Michigan, she could blame the Supreme Court of Michigan until she's blue in the face. She fucked up the case. Her predecessor, Bill Schuette and Todd Flood, they had the top two ranked health officials in the state of Michigan, Nick Lyon and Eden Wells. They convinced two judges to move them over to face jury trial, and that was about to happen. They were building a case for involuntary manslaughter against the governor. She threw out the charges for very questionable reasons. They concocted this bullshit nonsense that, they found all these boxes in the basement of a state building, and Todd Flood.
I remember that.
That was also bullshit.
What?
Most of the stuff they found in the boxes were documents and devices that had already been handed over.
Shit.
That's in my book. That's in my book too.
Somebody just said they just bought it.
Oh, thank you.
Pre-ordered it. Okay.
You could put, if you don't mind putting the link in there for the pre-order, that would be good.
They just did it right here.
Oh, great. So those would be my three demands. Fix the pipes. I want universal health care, and I want a Department of Justice investigation now, and I want a law passed in Congress to extend the statute of limitations for all crimes in Flint. I would add to that, how about a refund on our water bills for the last 10 years?
You think? That'd be great.
Right.
Well, Jordan, as we wrap up, again, thank you to A10 News Media Group and Mickey Jordan for allowing us with this platform to spread your message across the nation. I want to thank you for keep coming back to Flint, keep in the light on Flint. We thank you for that. In closing, I want to give you the opportunity to tell everybody across the nation about your documentary that's going to be online this Sunday, and just go ahead and close out for us today.
Yeah. So if I had another hour, I'd talk about online suppression of independent media. But for those of you that don't know, I am a reporter and the CEO of Status Coup. Status Coup, COUP. Don't get it twisted. I'm not with Trump or trying to do a coup. I actually named it Status Coup so we can have a journalistic coup on this country. We need to have a journalistic coup of the status quo. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's Status Coup News on YouTube. You could also go to statuscoup.com. And this Sunday, we are premiering a documentary called Flint Fatigue. Flint Fatigue. And like I said, it's called that because Mayor Weaver was told by the governor, not Snyder, Whitmer, that I can't give you more money because the state politicians have Flint fatigue. So that will premiere on our website on Sunday, flintfatigue.com. So you can watch it on our website for free at flintfatigue.com. And, obviously people in Flint, everybody's struggling, but if you want to see me back here in Flint, if you want to see me cover similar stories to this elsewhere, I wish I had a money tree in my backyard. I guess it's not a surprise to you. There's not a lot of rich people that want to fund this kind of reporting. Exactly zero.
We've noticed.
Exactly zero want to fund this reporting. So we're actually viewer funded. We have a membership model where everything's free, but we're funded by paying members who support us as you can support us as low as $5 a month. So if you can't do that, I totally understand. But if you can, you could go to statuscoup.com/join. I've been here. This is my 21st time in Flint, and believe it or not, it's been viewer funded. Sometimes I fly, but a lot of times I drive to save money. The drive is, what was the drive? 9 hours? Yeah. I mean, we break it up. I'm not crazy, but yeah, I just ask you, there's a lot of people out there. I'm sure you get a lot of emails from politicians and this person and that person asking you for money. I believe in walking the walk, not talking the talk. And as humbly as I could say, I believe we are walking the walk. Myself, my cameraman, we have a producer, because we're here. I was covering this march yesterday. Like literally, there was no national media. There's a couple.
I've seen you down there.
There's a couple local outlets, but not many. And every time I come back to Flint, there's no national, even your local media. I'm not even from here.
Right.
It's literally me, Charlie the Duff out of Detroit, Kayla Rubel out of Michigan. The rest of them, they could say we're covering it. You're not covering it by covering the anniversary with your bullshit stories.
Right.
You're not.
Right.
It's not covering it to show up to the court to cover the trials.
Right.
You are covering it up, and that's my message. The Detroit News. Why are you journalists? The Detroit Free Press. Why did you get into journalism? Flint Journal. You are the Flint Journal. The residents trust you to inform them. Residents cannot act. You cannot act. You cannot take action if you do not know. If you do not know what is happening, if you do not know who is exploiting you, if you do not know what they have done, how they did it, why they did it, then how the hell are you going to get the drive or the knowledge to act? You know, some people say, oh, that Jordan, he's not a journalist. He's an activist. You could call me whatever you want, but you cannot challenge my facts. I dare Dana Nessel, Sheldon Neely, Gretchen Whitmer, Rick Snyder to provide receipts that anything I have said today is incorrect. You might have money and you might be able to sue and all these things, but none of my reporting has been disputed because it's all based on facts, documents, and Flint sources. So all I could say is to the Flint residents watching, listen, I'm not from here and it's not for me to talk down to you or to tell you what to do. I don't know how I would react if I was poisoned. I don't know how I would react if 10 years later nothing has changed. I don't know if I have the stamina, mental, physical, spiritual energy to keep at it, to get back out there on the streets, because life's hard without being poisoned. And it takes a lot to stay out there and stay in the fight. But all I could tell you, and I've seen this in Flint and I've seen this elsewhere, the capitalist system, not just in America, but globally, the government, the corporations, their main strategy and technique is to make you give up. That's how the status quo maintains, to make you give up, to make you come to the conclusion it's hopeless, to make you come to the conclusion there's no point in going out and protesting. There's no point in showing up to city council. How many people showed up to city council before the water crisis?
Standing room only. Well, before the water crisis, none.
None. And that's not just in Flint, elsewhere. That's where they're screwing you from the front. City council, then all the way up to the White House. So I could go on forever. Bottom line, to me, not my opinion. This is based on my reporting. And I thank you for having me on, because one of the most frustrating things for me is that the majority of Flint residents don't know the full story.
Right.
I've gotten stories out in national outlets, but because your media won't cover it, not just the local TV stations won't cover it either. ABC 12, which, by the way, pretty shocking story about ABC 12 coming out in my book. ABC 12, by the way, do you know that they killed a story on Legionnaires in October 2014?
I kind of heard about that.
Well, I got the receipts for that.
Okay.
So, bottom line, listen, Shawshank Redemption's one of my favorite movies, and I believe get busy living or get busy dying. And if we're going to die, we might as well fight on the way out.
That's right. And we thank all of you for watching today. If you want us, A10, listen, like he told you, mainstream media, our journals, they don't cover stories like this. If you appreciate the shows that we keep bringing to you and you want to see more people like Jordan Sheridan on the show, donate to A10 News Media Group. Hit that Cash App, $A10 News Media Group. Mickey, any last words?
No, peace.